What's up, fam? So I'm getting ready to do a live to briefly give an in-depth reflection on the strength of the strong black woman, and my reflection is coming from, because I want to make sure I give credit to black women, Dr. Shanika Walker Barnes, Too Heavy to Yoke, Black Women and Burden of Strength. So I was rereading her work, which I've read several times, and I just wanted to write this reflection to give an in-depth illustration of how the cultivation of the strong black woman occurred. Okay. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you tools to bring balance to this strength. So these are actually tools that you can use. Okay. The strong black woman, but I have to inform you first. Folks need to be educated about the paradigms in which they exist so they can know how to exit. Okay. The strong black woman is a paradox that deeply stems from the life of chattel slavery. Such oppression provided black women false narratives. For instance, the capabilities of black women were seen as unfeminine. Black women were unusually strong, possessed more physical hardiness than other women of other ethnic groups, and they needed no time to recover after birth and were capable of handling the separation from their family and children. These are the myths that white counterparts cultivated based on the survival mechanisms of strong black women. And of course, these are false, right? These false interpretations of black women are essentially an illustration of traumatic survival. The humanity of black women were deemed inferior and unfeminine when compared to their white counterparts. Indeed, the necessity to survive under chattel slavery was essential. Such survival was also the cultivation of trauma that traveled through the bloodline of black women until the current time. The persona and armor of the strong black woman isn't accurately illustrated without taking into account how chattel slavery influenced such strength. Not only chattel slavery, but also every form of oppression set against black women since chattel slavery. With that, the need to be strong is a survival tactic of black women, so much so that it is praised among black women. Strength is what we black women can count on to make it, but making it oftentimes comes with consequences that often affect our overall health. The notion of strength that black women carry is more than not crying. It is more than serving endlessly. It's more than being the one that everyone can count on. It's more than not asking for help. It's more than not having their faith exploited. But it's also about the fear and control that strong black women exude over themselves. I think the burden of strength has caused us to fear vulnerability. Vulnerability. Now, this stems from false narrative that black women possess an emotional superiority. If in chattel slavery, black women could handle their oppressor auctioning their children, then black women can handle their children being lynched on a tree or by the police. Then black women can handle their children being falsely incarcerated. Then black women can handle when their children go missing or they are entrapped in sexual self-trafficking. All right, you see how this is going? The fear of vulnerability illustrates a lack of trust that didn't start with us, but with our foremothers, right? I can't imagine a black woman in chattel slavery trusting her oppressor that raped her, sold her children, or killed her husband. I can't imagine a black woman like Celie in The Color Purple trusting a father that raped her or her husband that abused her. I can't imagine a black woman trusting the pastor that knew that a deacon was molesting children in the church or a pastor that made a pass at her. I can't imagine a black woman trusting Christian doctrine that influences her to continue to suppress her sexuality or her emotional burdens or her identity as a woman, as a image of the feminine. Or a Christian doctrine that states she can't preach and pastor. I can't imagine black women trusting other women and black women that uphold the same patriarchal and oppressive influences as those that have oppressed them. Why would she be vulnerable in any of these spaces? Where is the safe space for black women? The fear of vulnerability and the lack of trust has roots, and to deny those roots or to suggest that the roots of black women's oppression isn't severe is an injustice and a means to continue oppression. In the midst of such oppression, we as black women are told to be strong because our foremothers were strong and we loathe in this, right? Our foremothers were strong with their strength, but their strength in oppressive spaces was a traumatic survival, not necessarily. Our foremothers were strong, but their strength in those oppressive places was traumatic survival, and is not necessarily the strength we believe it was. So because we choose to be strong as a means to survive in injustice in our homes, places of work, the church, and society, we learn how to control our emotions. We can't appear weak because we don't want others, even black women, to assume we can't handle the injustice, right? Because to be strong is to carry the strength. To be strong, to carry the strength, is to handle the suffering, right? So being strong is equated, especially according to Dr. Shanika Walker Barnes, to be strong is equated with handling the suffering. If you have to handle the suffering, you can't be vulnerable. You must be in control at all times. If this control is threatened, then strong black women can't escape. If this control is threatened and strong black women can't escape vulnerability, then strong black women respond with annoyance, anger, contempt, etc., which only further suppress the pain, disappointment, and trauma we need to release. The fear of vulnerability is an act that continuously suppresses, especially if an emotional or physical breakdown has occurred. Now, on the flip side, strength can be a gift that helps us maneuver through oppressive circumstances, but it has to have balance. But if it has no balance, then I think it's detrimental. This is my own analysis at this point. So how can strong black women bring balance to their notion of strength? The necessity of balance is healing and therefore provides you space to breathe and hopefully rest. It keeps you from being overproductive. This is my hope, that it will keep you from being overproductive. Consequently, there's a possibility that the strength of the strong black woman may appear in every area of your life, and you may not be in a position to choose in what area of your life can you afford not to operate in the strong black woman. So here's what I suggest. Make a list of all the areas in your life you exude the strength of the strong black woman, and make a list of all the areas in your life that you are strong. For instance, are you strong in any relationship you uphold by believing you don't need reciprocity, or the lack of reciprocity doesn't bother you? Are you silent about the things that occur in your relationship without your input, or the workload you receive at work compared to your colleagues? In what spaces do you maintain control of your emotions because you fear appearing weak, or you fear vulnerability? Or when you resist vulnerability, what response comes after your resistance? For what reason do you need an emotional release, and how have you and others prevented that release? After you make that list, imagine how you can bring balance into those spaces. Imagination, or the power of manifestation, is a healing tool, but you have to put it into practice. You have to do the work, right? And I know we are already doing a lot of work, right? But imagining, right? The power of it, just sitting back, chilling, just imagining what it would look like for you to speak up about the lack of reciprocity. Imagining what it would look like for you to approach your boss and say that this workload is excessive and unfair, right? Imagining what it would look like to really tell your pastor, like, I'm doing too much in this church, and there's other ministers, or there's other lay persons here that can help you. You don't have to call on me all the time. Like, what would that look like, right? So if you like to alter your reality, you have to shift how you think about it, right? Is the notion of strength always beneficial for and to you? Is the armor of the strong black woman truly protecting you all the time? Is it doing you more good than harm? Is it healthy for you to wear the mask, meaning your response to the fear of vulnerability, or how well you control your emotions all the time? Bringing balance to the burden of strength can release the tension it causes. But first, what do you think? How do you imagine it would look like? And it doesn't have to be huge. It could be subtle and small. It doesn't have to happen quickly. It must occur over time. This is not something that you just want to do quickly without thought, right? This requires preparation. And understand that there's no wrong answer. Whatever comes to mind, when I ask you this question, how do you imagine balance illustrating itself in the spaces in which you are always excessively strong? Whatever answer comes to your mind about that, that's the answer, right? Trust your intuition. And that's something that black women in general have been taught directly, indirectly, not to trust, is our intuition, right? And that's another conversation, right? That's another conversation. Let me not do that. That's another conversation. But whatever answer comes first, just trust that, right? In your divine self, which is your original self, and you are divine. You are the image of God. As a black woman, you are made in the image of God, right? You know what you need. and that divine space, and the space inside this body, right? You know what it is that you need. And right now, balance is a healing tool that can help you recover your authentic self from the strength of the strong Black woman, right? I think I talked about this Monday when I said, what has a strong Black woman afforded me? She has afforded me not to show myself grace, right? Where I was excessively crucial to myself, therefore I was excessively crucial and judgmental of others, right? She didn't allow me no space to breathe. I was always in a space of overproducing or trying to overachieve or trying to overplease other people, right? Even in middle school, when even before all of this, in middle school, all the other girls around me, right, because their life circumstances were vastly different than mine, we went through some of the same things, such as witnessing domestic violence, sexual violence, and things of those natures, but theirs were just to a different level. And when I go back and think about that, I'm like, dang, they really suffer some severe things. All of it is severe, but sometimes when it happens every day, all the time, that's different from when it happens. I think the effect, the level of trauma is different when somebody is abused in some way every day. Sometimes I feel like what I'm saying is not okay. I do think the trauma response is different from somebody who undergoes abuse every day to somebody that goes through abuse but it's not every day. I feel like the diminishing effect, the psychological effect, the emotional effect is there, right? Whether it happens every blue moon, it happens every day, you are emotionally affected in one way or another, right? But I think the level of harm that it does is different from when it happens every blue moon and when it happens every day, right? And the reason I say that, because when I was in middle school, these girls could handle the load, right? Because it was something they were accustomed to going through every day, whereas I wasn't accustomed to going through it every day. And to fit in, I used to tell them, yeah, I can handle the load too, right? So the notion of the strong Black woman is like a form of approval among Black women. Like, oh, you can handle the load with us, cool. Come on, let's do this. There, you know, you accept it. You in a clique or whatever. At least that's how I perceive it, where I'm sitting now from where I stood in middle school, right? But when I said that, I really began doing that, right? And looking back, it wasn't healthy, but I became accustomed to it, to the fact that it is what it is. And I was no longer paying attention to the emotional severity of what I placed myself into, because being a strong Black woman was cool. And I wanted to be cool too, right? So bringing yourself balance right now, imagining how to implement balance in a space where you are excessively strong is work, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It could be easy. Like I just gave an example a few minutes ago. Sitting back and imagining what it would be like for you to speak up about the lack of reciprocity you receive, what it would look like for you to say, hey, this is too much. What would those things look like? Imagine them first. Imagine them first. See yourself operating differently, right? Which is healing, which is work, which is a form of recovery. All right, I'll show you. Y'all let me know if y'all have any questions, comment, DM, share. Peace.